Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm super, super excited for today's Working in Digital Accessibility Ask Me Anything webinar. I've got Mary Beth here with me, as well as Huli, who both work with me at Accessibility Officer. I'm going to be fielding questions today about anything relative to getting in the business. And then we've got Mary Beth here on, who is an apprentice working for us as Accessibility Officer who came through the CAT program. Any kind of technical questions and others, I'm going to toss up over to her. So things like, what's the difference between accessibility and usability? What about success criteria? What kind of certifications can help me get into the job market? What does the job actually look like? How do I get started? How do I advance my career? And I think Mary Beth is a great representation of that because even at Accessibility Officer, she is growing and expanding her responsibilities in both a role perspective, but also a capacity perspective. So what are the different areas that you can even do digital accessibility, right? So getting started, hopping right into it. If you want to ask some questions, please do so. Raise your hand. Huli's going to be helping me out with that, as well as you can throw them in the chat and we'll get to them there. The presentation's live and you can speak and the recording will be shared with participants afterward. Ultimately, our goal here today is to help equip you with the information, resources, and education to help you start a career or figure out how to get started working in digital accessibility. Our vision at Accessibility Officer is that the U.S. disabled unemployment rate is the same as the U.S. unemployment rate. And I'm totally blind, so I have an affinity for the blind community. And all of that means we got to get a lot of blind people jobs. And so everything we do at Accessibility Officer is geared around that singular purpose and vision. And we like to help out people who are blind. So most of our technical team and our resources, probably 80% or more, are blind, visually impaired, have some type of sensory impairment where they're reliant on an assistive technology like a screen reader. I myself am totally blind. And I am reliant on a screen reader. I founded Accessibility Officer in 2021, and Mary Beth was in one of the first classes to come through that program in 2023.
Three.
So also too, today we're going to be sharing, if you saw in some of the promotions, we've got a laptop giveaway. So let me pull that up. We've got 3 winners here um, who did all the right steps to qualify for the laptop giveaway. So you don't have to be live on the presentation to win, but we've got, I'll probably chop this up, but we've got Nicole Merrill. Nicole Merrill from uh, from Georgia. We've got Jamie Prater from Jacksonville, Alabama, and Donna Castine from North Carolina. Those are going to be our 3 winners of the laptop giveaway. Why are we giving away laptops? Because what we've seen in the CAT program and our Getting Hired Playbook programs is that people often just do not have the employment readiness skills to be competitive in today's work environment. They don't know how to use a laptop, maybe don't even have a laptop, don't have great assistive technology skills, can't access their email readily, don't know how to use a computer or manage files, can't join a meeting like you guys are doing right now. Sadly, a lot of people who are in air quotes, I'm throwing up some air quotes, employment ready coming through our programs are just not employment ready. And so we wanted to change that. And so we were giving away some laptops to people who are blind or visually impaired here in the United States with some employment goals. So we will be reaching out to each of those individuals via email and be sending you those laptops with a 1-year JAWS license on them. I'll get right into it. If anybody is wondering about the CAT program, the Certified Accessibility Tester Program, that's the one that Mary Beth came through. I'll do a high level overview of this, of my background, and then we'll open it up to your Ask Me Anything questions. So Again, my name's Tanner Gears. I lost my sight in a bad auto accident when I was a young adult. I lived half my life as a blind person, and I just really became aware intimately overnight of the barriers that people who are blind or visually impaired face. I was disgusted. I was appalled, shocked that people with disabilities kind of face this discrimination. And I knew that when I'm in the right position to create opportunities for the blind, I'm going to do that. And so in 2015, I got started in digital accessibility, selling digital accessibility job boards, accessible job boards, a little bit ahead of its time 10 years ago, right? Shouldn't have been, but it was. And some founder problems. That business went out of business. And then I was like, wow, digital accessibility, this is a career opportunity. I've been using screen readers for about 10 years at this moment, but I never thought that, oh my gosh, this could really be a job opportunity. So I went to LinkedIn, started looking for usability tester jobs, accessibility tester jobs. I found this nonprofit based in New York, connected with the CEO, shared with some problems I saw on the website, got an interview. 2 meetings later, I had a job as a usability tester. Working really hard, doing everything it takes to separate myself from everybody else. I really wanted to do well in this career. Got 2 promotions and up to the executive director position. I was running that organization with the founder, and we were growing that. We almost sold it to AFB, the American Foundation for the Blind. That deal fell through, but AFB asked me to come over and help them with their consultancy. So I did that. And then I went over to the private sector at UsableNet. I was their head of partnerships over there. And all of that gave me the experience of what it means to build a team, what digital accessibility looks like, what partnerships looks like, what sales looks like, what enterprise looks like, what the business looks like. And I'm an entrepreneur. I This is not the first business I've started. It happens to be the first very successful business that I've started, and I did so in 2021. On December 21, I launched Accessibility Officer. Things were going well. I'm very blessed, very fortunate. And my co founder, Heather, and I could not source the talent needed. Uh, uh, People with blindness or visual impairment, people like me, we could not source the talent with the technical skill or ability at the level it needed to be to do the job. We just couldn't find them. And the people that had the skills were already working, right? Is a better way to say it. And so we built a training program. Heather built out this, very comprehensive training program, and we started running it as a vocational rehabilitation training program. Partnership with Helen Keller National Center, and that was in 2022. We ran our first program. And now we've done over 10 programs across 10 states. Over 50 students have come through the CAT program, and we've learned a lot from that. We learned, exactly what we need to do to help make people who are blind or visually impaired competitive in the space. Not just how do we improve the training program, but how do we improve our process? How do we improve our testers? How do we build the software that enables people who are blind or visually impaired to be competitive in the workplace? We must build something that's going to do sighted shit for blind people uh, in the digital accessibility testing process and the reporting process. And we did it. And it's Dart Suite is what it's called. And we just made it publicly available recently. So that is a little bit of the background of me and where we got to the CAT program. And the CAT program, the Certified Accessibility Tester Program, is a 14-week instructor-led digital accessibility testing and reporting training program. It is intense. It is akin to a collegiate level course, a graduate college level course. It's 14 weeks, right? So it's basically a semester long. And there's lectures and workshops every single week, one-on-one meetings with the instructor and mentorship meetings with apprentices like Mary Beth for those who need it. It's about 20 hours a week, 20 hours of effort per week or more or less, depending on the individual, right? Everybody's different. But at the end of the program, you're going to qualify for 2 final exams to earn 2 certifications. One is the Department of Homeland Security Trusted Tester certification, and the other is the CAT 2.2. That's our certification. So the federal jobs, local state jobs, any federal contractor job, you're going to need, it's going to be required for you to have that trusted tester certification. It's a little bit less complex than the CAT 2.2, but we wanted to have that as a part of this program. One, for the job opportunities, but two, because it's a tough certification. It's technical. Not a lot of people can get it. A lot of people have tried to. And, but everybody coming through the CAT program will earn their trusted tester, assuming they pass, like Mary Beth did. And then the CAT 2.2, that's more towards the industry standard today. So the trusted tester is actually set to the standards that were established in 2008. A lot has happened since 2008, and the CAT 2.2 certification is to the standards that were set in 2023. So the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.2 AA compliance. It's all technical jargon, jibbitally job that you don't need to know right now. All you do need to know is that in order for you to be successful in this career or any other career, is you're going to have to know the language. You have to be able to talk the talk, right? So these acronyms, these technical phrases are all things that you learn coming through this program, just like a doctor, just like a dentist, just like a vocational rehabilitation counselor. There's a language, there's acronyms, and there's things that you got to learn. It's all teachable, it's all learnable. You don't need a technical background to join the CAT program. You do need really great assistive technology skills. You do, if you need them. You know, there's people who are mouse users coming through the program. They don't need as strong of assistive technology skills, but everybody needs great computer skills. And then we really hammer home the professionalism and everything you need to succeed. Like once you actually can get the job, great, you're technically skilled, you can do the job, but that doesn't mean you're going to keep it. If you don't know etiquette, if you don't know business acumen, if you don't know how to conduct yourself in a meeting, if you don't know how to manage multiple timelines, if you can't handle the pressure of objective feedback from a supervisor, you're not going to do well in any industry. And that's what the CAT program does. That's what the CAT program delivers. And Mary Beth, also a working professional when she came into the program, but has upskilled so much with regards to working in the digital space and as a remote talent. So that is the CAT program at a high level. And then, oh yeah, separate to that is that if you get trained, you get certified, I'm going to give you a job. That's what Mary Beth has right now. I woke up blind in the hospital. I never had a problem getting a job before that moment. If I got the interview, I got the job. And I never, ever faced such discrimination, except for in the employment process, or as much as so in the employment process that I ever did as a sighted person without a disability, with quote unquote without a disability, right? I'm ADD before there was ever an H. I was born deaf in my right ear, or hard of hearing in my right ear. I can barely hear anything in it, but I never considered myself as having a disability, nor did one really affect me, even though I couldn't really read, uh, to the degree that visual impairment did, with the discrimination perspective. So we believe our philosophy in achieving our vision, the U.S. disabled unemployment rate is the same as the U.S. unemployment rate. It starts with employment. We've seen it when we talk to other people, like, hey, how are you doing? Or you're meeting somebody at a partner, hey, what do you do? You know, our identities are so tied to what we do for a living, how we make money, how much money we make. It's so ingrained into our culture. So we believe in order to achieve our vision is that we've got to get blind talent trained in technical skills with the professionalism needed to succeed in the workplace. If we do those things, if we certify, apprentice, and transition effectively, that's how we're going to change stigmas and societal barriers for people with disabilities. We've got to start putting aces in their places, and that's in the workplace, crushing it next to people who don't have a disability so that they can too realize, oh shit, they can do it just like I can. They might do it a little bit differently, but damn, they're good at it. So, with that being said, I want to open it up to questions about working in digital accessibility. Uh, Fire away. And Julie, I don't know if we need to take people off of mute manually or we need to unlock that. We might need to do some controls.
Like that. What do we go?
No, they can unmute themselves.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Julie.
Don't worry.
All right. So I might have gone a little bit too much over the top and blown you guys away a little bit. I've been getting feedback on that. They call it the RIS, I guess. But what questions do you have? The certifications to get in the field. What does it take? What kind of working experience? What does the interview process look like? What kind of questions are you going to get in the hiring process? What opportunities can I get beyond digital accessibility? Go ahead, Bernadetta.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm
Yes.
sure I'm unmuted. Okay, so I have a really strange predicament. I'm currently a remote working professional, but my job is going to be eliminated because it's being outsourced.
Okay.
But as it is currently, it's actually not very accessible. I have limited functionality that I'm actually able to do. So I'm looking to pivot and upskill to something like this actually. And I'm just wondering, would this be feasible? Would it be feasible to do this type of like the rigorous testing while I'm still working, or would that be kind of is that not something
Yeah.
that would be possible, or even something that I would should attempt?
Great question.
Depending,
So
I'm going to take this if I may, Tanner.
go for it, Mary Beth. Yeah.
I actually did. I was working full time when I started this class.
Oh, okay.
I will say it is not easy. It's a lot, and making sure I was there for class time was the hardest part because that does happen during the day, and I'm not sure what arrangements. I know they've changed things a little bit since I took it.
Mhm.
But a lot of the other stuff can be adjusted schedule wise. The only things I'm not Tanner, you might know better than I. But as far as if you can handle working all day and then studying and doing the assignments during the evenings and on weekends, then it can be done. I have done it. And then I did
That's
it
right.
to the point where I chose to leave my other job and do this. So
That's where I'm trying to set myself up in that sort of position where I get the choice to leave instead of them telling me that I'm gonna have to leave. Because they're not really playing ball with finding any accessible options that might work for me in the future in this uh, role. So I'm just trying to basically, I don't want to part on bad terms either. So
Mary Beth, do you want to talk about what you did? Because I think this is applicable for this and other situations. How did the conversation go with your employer when you're like, hey, I need this accommodation. Hey, I need an adjusted work schedule. How did you approach that?
um actually because I worked in a school, so I was home at the time the classes were. I just had to arrange to make sure I was home in time for the class. When it came time for me, when I was working both jobs, one part-time and one full-time, and I had a conversation with my employer and said, look, here's my situation. I want to do this. And there's some untenable things that were happening. I was having some other issues where I was working. Fortunately, my boss is pretty cool, but I'm like, if I can do this remotely, I am more than happy to stay on even part time. But it was all or nothing, and I walked. So and left them out of compliance, but that's not my problem. But it was not an easy conversation. It was not an easy decision. As far as taking the class while working, that was tough. It was exhausting. Um, because I still had a child at home. So I had
I
a
have
full
two
part.
kids at home, so I get it. I understand that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's.
and unfortunately, I had become a single parent
Mhm.
upon the death of my husband, so it was a lot.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds very tough. I
Well,
actually
that
have
was why I made choices that I need to find employment and I need to be able
absolutely.
to be available for family. So,
Yeah, I actually have one more question. So I reopened my case with VR in my state because I was hoping that maybe they could help me negotiate with the company or just like be a resource to sort of retain my position at first. And that's kind of what's currently as my employment goal with my counselor. How do I how would I be able to talk to her or just to sort of negotiate a way to pivot that towards something towards a different goal? But also, at the same time, I noticed that we're not a state that's currently working with you guys.
Okay.
Or
What state are you in?
Connecticut.
Connecticut?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the industry that you're currently in?
I'm in insurance right now, but it's really low level right now because of the fact that a lot of the work was not their interface is not set up at all for accessibility. They could really use an in-house accessibility tester or consultant, really, but they won't go for it probably. So
Okay. Well, let's make an introduction on that. But
absolutely right.
but yeah, but so what I would say is you would want to have that conversation with your counselor.
Right.
And so it's client driven, and if you want to go into digital accessibility compliance, then this would be a good path. And
Right.
for all the reasons outlined, right? The training, certification, apprenticeship, and um and what I would also say is that, so we're in a lot of states and we're growing. And so when a vocational rehabilitation client like yourself is in a state where we're not at, and we have a demand from a client at in vocational rehabilitation, that can help us actually advance getting a contract in that state. So introducing us to your counselor, even though we're not in Connecticut yet, so we can have the discussion with them, make them aware of the program, assess their needs. Like, hey, this makes sense for us to partner with the Accessibility Officer and get that contract process started. We're running classes every other month on average, so it's not like a once a year or twice a year thing. And then because of the remote, I know Connecticut's a small state, but if I don't know what transportation needs are like in Connecticut, but if there's problems with transportation, having a remote job training program and a remote job development program might be attractive to them. So I would say let's just do it.
That was one. Yeah, I was going to say that was one of the things that I used with my VR counselor when I'm like, I need to switch it up, and transportation was an issue for me.
My counselor seems very open to
that helps.
Any type of remote work. I know she's actually working remotely herself, so I am pretty sure that.
Mentioning also that in your position, you've been trying to work with your employer, and
I've been working at this position for 3.5 years at this point, and it's been.
And they're not being the most receptive. I mean, you're trying to do, but they're not making it accessible, or it's.
I don't think they know how to incorporate the resources that I'm trying to bring to the table. And they're like, they think that, okay, they have their system figured out and they don't need any extra suggestions or any extra, but at the same time, they don't really know what to do. They try to tell me, it's a large corporation. They try to tell me that I'm the only JAWS user in the company. I said, no, there's like 6,000 people working here. I'm not the only JAWS user. And lo and behold, I'm not the only JAWS user. But yeah,
wow,
just as an example. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like their own, but I mean, this is something. Yeah, this is kind of striking a chord with me because, I really feel like vocational rehabilitation, at least with blind services, needs to have a type of CAT program. Maybe not the full blown program, but enough of the program in like a type of certification where you could be empowered to know exactly what to tell the company in order to implement the
Absolutely
changes.
That's a very good point.
It's not just an employment like readiness thing, but it's a job retention thing. So many people get the job and then they're in this situation just like what you're saying. The software is not accessible, they don't know what to do, and they're stuck between a rock and a hard spot. Because at the end of the day, what they're saying is that we're not going to fire you because we don't want to get sued, but we also don't want to pay to fix the solution. We don't want to pay to fix it. So instead, we're just going to pay you for year after year after year.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but my job is basically, even though I hold 2 bachelor's degrees of this and that, but my job consists of copying and pasting addresses into something into a database. It's underemployment for sure. And I'm not going to speak badly about the company because I won't. I don't want to have it's all about professionalism, but at the same time,
exactly.
I'm just trying to give to paint a picture a little bit of what's happening in my, why I'm motivated to do this type of thing.
Yeah, then even if you wanted to stay working there, you could use this as a wedge to work into accessibility with them.
That would be nice. I would love to be able to do that because they are a large corporation. That'd be nice. if honestly, when I first started sort of thinking about the accessibility aspect of their company, they could really use a small department, a small, a small accessibility team. I think they think that they have AI trying to do accessibility for them. They actually had me, they did allow me to do a test project that like a test and learn or something, I think they called it, where I worked through one of their workflows for their customer, their front end. And they had us, well, me and another person, they had us go through and do a live presentation of whether it works. And unfortunately, it didn't work. We couldn't go through the entire workflow to to complete the transaction. So
Let's connect
yeah,
offline, and we'll get the conversation going with your VI
sure. Sorry, I
counselor.
didn't mean to take up the time.
No, no, no.
Sorry about
This
that.
is a great conversation. It's applicable to other aspects, right? And
Okay.
so definitely valuable conversation. Like we discussed, talking with employers, how do you have like conversations about changing things? We talked about accessibility barriers, how you might go about that. And we also talked about, how the CAP program might work in your situation. So yeah, it was a very valuable conversation. Awesome. Thank you for asking the question.
Thank you for answering. Thank you.
Yeah. Saw some new people joining. Thank you guys all so much for showing up. Anybody else have a question? What's the keyboard command for raised hand, Mary Beth?
Alt H.
Or hand?
Oh, for Alt Y. I'm sorry.
Alt Y.
Alt H is for the chat.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Alt Y. No, no. Thanks for the chat. I don't know. I was like Alt C. That's not chat. All right. Well, oh, we got two. Okay, double hands up. Huli, do you want to call out one of those hands?
Yes, Julie Flacker.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
How's everybody today?
Good. Thanks for joining, Julie.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is, I'm a vision rehab therapist. I work in a very rural area in New York State, and I am partnered with another organization that is working towards bringing more employment opportunities to our rural, all of our rural clients here. And I guess I'm wondering about the current numbers of like how many participants you've had in the CAT program. And as far as like, I was grateful for all the information you've provided so far about, the timeline for the certification, the timeline for the courses and everything. But for these folks who live in rural areas with potential connectivity issues, are there ways to phone in to participate for this? Because I have some clients in mind who I think would be very interested, but I don't know about the Wi-Fi connectivity for everything. I know that's obviously going to be a requirement for the job, but that's definitely an issue in our area, even though people are wanting to move in that direction.
Yeah. Mary Beth, do you want to take that? Or I'm happy to take it. So
I was gonna say I was trying to think of how you could do it by phone, and with the requirements, there's so much that you do online. The trusted tester itself is an online portion of the course. And then the workshops again are online, where you may share your screen or be there with others while they share their screen to go through what you're learning that week. And maybe somebody's having problems and the instructor is, helping them through it, and you get to, work through it with them. Because sometimes if one's having a problem with something, most likely there's more than one.
Yeah, it would be
That makes sense.
they'd be significantly
And I will also say
disadvantaged.
I live in a rural area with poor connectivity. So and I did
So
manage to
the
get there.
problems.
I am well aware of the problems.
Because I wondered, I know, and at least in my neck of the woods, like we have a center for assistive technology, but it is not a reasonable drive for a lot of folks. They'd love to be able to, through Voc Rehab, go and get that training, get them, get well underway with, increasing their, their JAWS skills or other accessibility assistive technology skills. But a lot of the VRTs are now having to do more in-home training in our area, and I know I'm woefully underqualified for that. I was brought up on the old school VRT stuff, not like the hybrid VRT and assistive tech side of things. So really trying to find some resources for clients that even if it was having a central, a couple more central locations in some of these rural areas, or like learning hubs. And I know the organization that I am on the board for is hoping to be able to bring something like that to our area to help with the connectivity issues that people have in their rural home communities.
Yeah, so we were part of the New York State Digital Equity Expansion program. We were providing accessibility support for digital stuff, as well as for people who were trying to, in New York State, trying to raise concerns about where the internet connectivity gaps are. Whereabouts in New York are you?
I'm in Western New York on the southern tier, so I'm about an hour and a half south of Buffalo, but my coverage area is all the way from Buffalo to Rochester, and I actually work down into Pennsylvania as well, down towards State College and over to Pittsburgh. I've got a very large coverage area, and the bulk of that is very rural territory.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing is there no because VR would pay for the internet connectivity, right? Like if it was possible.
Typically, so if you're vocationally bound, that's great, and we obviously we want to push employment, but we also have a lot of folks that fall into our older blind program who still need to work but are no longer considered to be, like, once you hit 65, you're no longer considered vocational, so to speak. So trying to, I think, Voc Rehab definitely will help for a lot of those folks, but the funding for the folks who still want to learn that technology may need to learn it for job prospects because they may be working until they're much, much older. That's a big gap I'm finding.
Yeah, I was thinking about Starlink. I've heard some incredible things about Starlink, even connected to devices on airplanes. So, but yeah, so that is going to be a significant barrier. I mean, our Getting Hired playbook is less like, hey, you need to share your screen. It is more like, hey, we could phone in on the Zoom meetings, and then I could go and do the work when I have connectivity. But there's so much value in the small components that are synchronous in the remote training, the live lectures, the live workshops, the one-on-one meetings, the mentorship stuff. I think they'd be at a significant handicap.
Okay, thank you so much. That gives me some really good insight to be able to share with clients. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Great question. Great question. Thank you for asking that. So yeah, if you guys have questions about any part of working remotely, working in digital accessibility, the types of jobs that are available, how to go about doing that, different types of certifications, difference in types of testing, happy to answer all of those questions. Cool. I will wait for a hand raise. Julie, just interrupt me if I don't hear a hand raise. We are super excited at Accessibility Officer about the digital accessibility field in general. There's a lot of things going on, right, with artificial intelligence, right? I think Meta Glasses and ChatGPT are doing a really great job of increasing awareness about what's possible and the, the capabilities of AI. I think that we might be familiar with overlay companies like AudioEye or AccessAbility and those solutions that don't work. Recently, really exciting, the FTC settled with AccessAbility, and this is not a direct quote, but my thoughts are is that they settled on they got sued and then settled that their solution didn't work. That's what it looks like to me. But I actually did receive a defamation, a legal defamation threat from them because I said that they got fined, which I guess is what my thoughts were. But the way I stated it, as a matter of fact, they didn't like that. And I got an email from their lawyer. But that's the type of businesses that overlay companies are. And the increasing regulations and standards across the United States are creating tremendous opportunities for us as an organization to hire more people who are blind or visually impaired. Mary Beth, are you in the Arvada contract?
I am.
So we just got the digital accessibility consultant for a city in Colorado, Arvada, and they're a really great organization to be working with. Probably will, if we do really well with them, will be our second largest customer. We're working with various New York State agencies and cities there. And we're really excited about the regulations that are happening at the local level, at the federal level, and of course in Europe. And Canada also has regulations in place. So a lot of momentum, a lot of jobs. If you got your search alert set up appropriately for digital accessibility, you have been seeing waves of jobs coming out. And the jobs are getting better because in the past, they used to like want someone who could do everything. We want this senior, they would call it like a senior digital accessibility person. And we want someone with 5 years experience who knows how to test across every testing, JAWS, NVDA, VoiceOver, on desktop, on mobile. Plus, they need to be able to write code. Plus, they need to be able to do the reports. Plus, they need to be able to do the training. Plus, they need to do the electronic documents. Plus, 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 plus. And it's like, those are unicorns that don't really exist. And a lot of people who are blind or vision impaired would, complain like, hey, I can't really qualify for these jobs. So it's like, in no other job in the technical field, you would never ask a developer to also do testing. You would never ask a QA tester to write code. You would never ask a QA tester to draft the reports on their test data, right? It's just like you would never ask a QA tester to perform training for the enterprise. You wouldn't ask a developer to do that, but they were asking digital accessibility professionals to do that. So now what we're seeing in the landscape is that they're getting a little bit more it's not yeah, they're more nuanced. Thank you. They're more nuanced on what they're looking for. Also the hiring process and interview process has changed over time. So before, if you had a CPACC certification, that is the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, Certified Professional in Accessibility Core Competencies, CPACC, Certified Professional in Accessibility Core Competencies. That meant that you knew digital accessibility. You knew how to do the testing and the reporting and everything. If you had that CPACC, you were like good. And anybody who's taken the CPAC exam knows that that is a garbage certification for digital accessibility. They go over the principles that digital accessibility is like built on: perceivable, operable, understandable, robust, right? But there's nothing about compliance standards. There's nothing about testing. There's nothing about reporting. You just know how to talk about digital accessibility. It's great for a recruiter. It might be great for like a project manager, maybe, but it's definitely not good for a digital accessibility tester. So what was happening is that the companies were hiring these people and they weren't able to do the job. And so that really shifted the market to be like a lot of contract for hire. JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, these big companies were contracting with people for 12 months, 6 months, 18 months, and then they would be offered a position if they did the performance well enough. And now we're seeing that condense into the interview and hiring process. Functional interviews. Okay, great. You can talk, you can communicate, you can position your value. You're good enough to even go to the next step. Now you're going to actually have to do an audit. here's a website, do the test, where's the report? And if it's not A plus perfect, you're not going on. You're not moving on because that is a minimum requirement to move on to the next round because there's going to be more interviews. Right. And so a lot of people get stopped right there is the functional interview assessment. Anybody that's doing usability, anybody that's working at any usability tester at Fable, Audio UI, Alliant, they're not going to pass a functional interview assessment. They're just not.
That's one thing about the CAT program. One of those the CAT certification itself, it's not an exam where you answer questions. It's a functional exam. It is you sit down, they provide, we're given, the students are given the test site and that they've never seen, and they go and they have a time limit and a minimum number of issues they must find within that time limit. And it's, clock is starting, go. And you need to, be able to do that to prove that you can function at the same level as any other tester.
Do you want to talk about too? I think, like, and this isn't to bang against like a call center job. That was my first job as a blind person, was at a call center. I had call center jobs when I was sighted too. But I think that unlike many professions, but also like some other professions, like many professions, digital accessibility is not static, right? Like we were talking about the trusted tester that was based on the standards in 2008. Today, this current standard was set in 2023. As technology advances, so will the accessibility standards, which means so will your skills need to advance. Accessibility is ongoing skill development. It's not like I got my certification, now give me a job. No, you have to like consistently work on your skills. Mary Beth, do you want to talk about that?
Well, part of it through being an apprentice, I'm learning. I'm still, even this morning, I had a conversation with the project manager over the project I'm on to go over some of the issues and discuss them back and forth where he thought maybe I could have done better. And that's good because, it's like, okay, cool. And that's part of, learning to accept constructive criticism. But in the meantime, I'm also continuously learning. I'm taking classes to gain skills constantly. And I keep refreshing myself on the standards that we are at because there's so many of them. It's easy to forget, and that's kind of when I get caught up is, oh, I need to review that because it's something I haven't had to use very often. And it's a constant learning and refreshing your memory. So it's an ongoing, and I read a lot of articles on disability. I do a lot of reading just to keep up on things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fulfilling though. Like I love hearing our testers talk about like, oh, like this was like I was on this project, I was on this website, and like when I got here, it sucked. And now it's like accessible and usable for everybody.
It is cool to go back and see work you've done. Yeah, that is cool. Or to be there when they remediate and they ask you to go back and double check it for them, make sure they didn't miss anything, make sure they got it right, and they did. It's great to look at an issue and go, yeah, that's actually fixed. That is great. And then you know that the next person who uses any kind of assistive technology is going to be able to use it with minimal or possibly no problems at all. It's certainly better than it was when we started.
Yep.
And that's kind of the goal for any job.
I think that's also unique about the CAT program is that there's a lot of other digital accessibility training programs, especially those who are blind or visually impaired. Talk a little bit about, Mary Beth, talk a little bit about the standards and how they relate to disability, period.
The WCAG standards or the CAT standards?
Yeah, I mean, as a blind tester, like how do you think, like how has coming through the CAT program changed your perception or maybe created greater awareness?
Probably greater awareness. I mean, I obviously I knew things didn't work on the web because I use a screen reader. But I have learned what isn't working and why it's not working and how to let the company know and that includes other. Now, when I complain to a company that I'm doing business with, I can tell them this is what, that's just on a personal level, not even work. I can give them more specific, helpful, other than your site's crap. Your site just doesn't work. I can't use it. Now I can give them, this is what's not working. And I understand how to better articulate where they need to improve.
How do you
But
address things like color contrast or images?
um, color contrast, obviously, I cannot see, so I need a sighted assistant to help me with that because I cannot. Although there are times the screen readers, you can get them, obviously, like an image of text, I cannot do because that's just, I cannot get into that to do it. But like text foreground and background, screen readers will feed you those hex numbers, and you can put those into the there's a tester that you can run, an automated tester that you can give it the numbers and get the results back. So I have done that before. And images, I start a lot of times with JAWS has a thing called Picture Smart, which is IA based, and it's a newer tool, but I use it to at least get an idea of what the picture is, to just kind of gauge, is this something I need to have somebody sighted tell me more about? If it's a chart or something, okay, I'm going to get a sighted assistant to look at it and give me the details that I might not be getting, but I it's getting better, and it's so that's kind of how I'm handling that now. There are a lot of things now that I actually am able to do without going straight through to somebody sighted. I can manage more of it, not entirely all of it, but I do still use sighted assistants for certain things.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear you not say the automated tools for the color contrast, because there's definitely
Oh, and yeah, the color contrast checker there's automated. You can run the automated and they catch a lot of them, but there are some that they just don't. There's things that automated tools do miss things. So companies that'll
Yep.
tell you, oh, we do this, and it's like, yeah, that's nice. It catches, what would you say, about 25-30% of them,
Yep.
quarter to a third.
Yep.
They miss a lot. So you can run them, but there's still things you got to check. Even when it passes, sometimes they're not perfect.
Has Braille helped you as a digital accessibility tester?
Yeah, well, I'm a staunch Braille user, so yeah, I've got my Braille display sitting in front of me as we speak, so it's always connected to my computer. So yes, I do use it if I need to clarify something. It's made me a little bit quicker, for me personally, because I do use it. And just to make sure I understand things that I'm coming across and make sure I'm entering them correctly and I'm, accurate. For me, it has more to do with accuracy of understanding and of what I put out. In audit sheets and whatever.
Have you been using the new Dart suite yet? Yes,
Yeah.
you have.
Yes, I have.
I'm super duper excited about that, y'all, because I don't know, some maybe there's people here on the call who like don't want to work for somebody else. Right? Like I identify with that. And uh you know, Dart suite, the vision is that the US disabled unemployment rate is the same as the US unemployment rate. So how do we create as many job opportunities as possible? How can we use Dart Suite to do that? Well, I think that we can create a platform that's accessible to screen readers to do digital accessibility testing and reporting and project management. So like end-to-end automated testing plus manual testing plus project management that's accessible to screen reader users.
It's nice because it does some things that I'm not good at doing, like capturing an image of whatever it is you're focused on, or at least getting a screenshot of it so that if there's a question later, yeah, it was right here on the page. It was this page. It just captures a lot of the stuff.
It's only going to get it's only going to get better.
It'll take a full screenshot, I think.
Yeah, it's only going to get better. It takes 2 screenshots. It takes a screenshot of the whole page and the element that you're looking at. It grabs code snippets. It grabs other system information. It makes the testing and reporting process so much more efficient and fluid and fast and professional, right? The imagine as a blind person being able to do a really comprehensive report, automated plus manual testing, and get it in a format, an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheet with images and screenshot and code snippets and recommendations on how to fix, and is completely by a totally blind person. Like, that's possible with Dart Suite. And let's say you're building your digital accessibility business and you've got a big project and it's actually a little bit too much for you. Maybe it's like too much volume, or it's too complex. It's just beyond your scope. Well, for all, again, the U.S. disabled unemployment rate should be the same as U.S. unemployment rate. We want to create a marketplace of individuals who are certified that want to do testing, but don't really want to work for somebody. So we are going to make manual testing by certified experts on demand possible. So come through the CAP program, get your certification, and you want to do a little bit of digital accessibility testing here, you want to do it there, you want to use it to wedge into a different industry, like you can do that with Dart Suite. So and this is where we're at right now. In the future, we're going to expand this out to different industries. Accessibility Officer, I really love our model. We just met with our tax guy, and I'm telling him, I'm like, hey, Evan, like, we want to replicate this model. Like, the U.S. disabled unemployment rate should be the same as the U.S. unemployment rate. Our model is build a business and then create training programs that train people in that business, give them certifications, give them an apprenticeship, and help them transition. We want to build another business that is literally designed for the purpose of helping blind or visually impaired people get trained into that job and then help them transition into that career. And he's like, oh man, you guys are set up. Like, you guys are primed and ready to do that. And so it's like, oh my God, like that, it's so exciting right now what we're able to do with this model. And we hope to change, like, systematically how vocational rehabilitation is done in some ways, right? Certify, apprentice, transition for everybody who's not college bound, right? For everybody who wants to do a trade, for people who aren't meant to be lawyers, for people who want to be in IT support or cyber or accounting or bookkeeping or project management or digital accessibility, right? Like, we need to create those career pathways so that we can start to change the minds about what people who are blind can do in employment, and that we can do it just as good as anybody else. So that's the future. That's our model. That's our vision. That's what we're doing here. That's what we do every day at Accessibility Officer. So in the last couple minutes here, I'll open it up for some more questions. We got about 5 more minutes, and then I've got to hop to another meeting.
So
Yes,
Dart Suite
please.
made by you, or is it a third-party software?
No, it's completely developed by us.
All right. I got my mic working now. Didn't realize I was muted this whole time.
We were intentionally ignoring you.
Yeah. No, that's all right. You're answering most of my questions anyway. But
I'm just joking.
I live in Oregon, which I noticed
Okay.
on your website is not in your network of authorized areas, regions.
Yeah.
I'm working with Oregon Commission for the Blind. Just got onboarded with them like last week.
Did we email? Have we been talking before?
No, but I did through the your guys' website. I did send a message on your contact form indicating that I was working with Miss Blaine, and I'm in Oregon, and how to go about getting that the Oregon Commission for the Blind authorized with you guys to be able to work with you.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I would love to do that. Our accessibility engineer is based in Oregon. Bruce, absolutely love him. Would love to help more people in Oregon. That's the PM that Mary Beth was talking about earlier. But yeah, if we so the reason I was asking if we emailing, because I remember something from Oregon coming in. So I would love, is it Jennifer? I would love to have a conversation with your counselor and get that going. Same thing with you too, Bernadette, in Connecticut. So, yeah, let's do. What was your name again, sir?
Sorry, Kevin Wortney.
Kevin. Cool, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of work that I would like to do because I do have a background in IT, database management, websites, design and maintenance and all that sort of stuff way back in the early, like 2000 through 2005. Back then I had enough eyesight to be able to get away with just squinting at the monitor and
Yeah.
pecking at the keyboard to type out, ASP.NET code and all that stuff. But I can't do that anymore. So I'd like to shift into something that I can do that, which is still in that general area of interactive, software like web applications and mobile apps.
I love that. I love that. Do you yeah, one of the line, it's like how, what's the right adjacent business? Like web development and design is like one of those things that's, yeah, I think is really aligned with digital accessibility. So,
Yeah. And,
tell me about a little bit about your experience in database management. I asked that question. I probably shouldn't ask it because we're about like 2.5 minutes to the stop. But is there something specific though I can answer right now, but outside of like, heck yeah, we need to hop on with your counselor and figure out how we get Oregon on board?
I was just wondering what the process was, other than using that contact form, and what the timeline might be, because she and I are in the beginning process of hashing out an action plan as to what's to work with me on. And
That's awesome, Kevin.
yeah, right now we're just looking at basic things like getting familiar with JAWS. That's one bit of software I don't know anything about yet. So basic getting up to speed on accessibility technology, but beyond that, yeah, career training and goals.
Awesome. You have some visual acuity?
I have mostly just peripheral vision at this point. My central vision is shot.
Okay.
So I've got RP, and in my particular case, it seems to do the opposite of what it normally does, where it constricts from the outside in. In my case, it just took the middle out first.
Inside out, yeah.
Natural, yeah.
More like Stargard's kind of.
Yeah, but it's the RP, it's the X-linked RPGR gene. So go figure. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just quirky that way, I guess.
I think that you're in a really good position to succeed in this industry. With your technical experience and background, you're going to fly through the CAP program. It's really going to be about how much value you're going to be able to provide as soon as possible to an organization, as demonstrated through your tactical and technical proficiency. Mm-hmm. So the faster that you can learn and demonstrate your expertise, like the better you're going to be. There is a caveat to that. You're going to probably need some working experience, right? Employers, at the end of the day, your ability to charm and communicate your value and then technically demonstrate it in a functional interview, can unlock things, right? And so you can definitely like lean into your technical background. Then after you get your foot into the door, advancing up into accessibility, it is a very lucrative career, especially if you can get past digital accessibility testing. I mean, a mid-range tester, expert tester, easily north of 100,000 a year. But if you're doing accessibility engineering or more technical remediation stuff, accessibility engineers, I had a conversation last week with our developer, who does not have an accessibility background. He goes, man, accessibility engineers, they make a ton because I basically have to teach engineers what to do as we're building it, right? And so the supply and demand is real for accessibility engineers. So if you're able to step into that role, that could be significantly lucrative for you.
Yeah. The only other question I have is on your website, you're saying that after going through the training, you also offer part-time work for those who are able to pass it.
Yes.
That's right.
I was just curious about that. I mean, that's is that based on how well you do in the training?
If you pass both exams.
I'll let Mary Beth take this one
Yeah.
and talk about her experience, and then
Yeah.
we'll close it up on that.
That's just
Yep,
because
I
have
went
a
through the I
huge-
went through the 14 weeks. I passed the trusted tester. I took that 4-hour functional exam. I passed it to my great relief. And then I was offered the position. It's anyone who can pass those 2 exams becomes an apprentice. It is a
Alright.
part-time role. It's part-time because they want to get as many of us some experience, but it is real world experience. I
Okay.
work with actual clients with, actual websites that either are in development or are live, depending on the client. And I get feedback, and it's like I said, sometimes going back and seeing the ones we've remediated or they've remediated based on our audit. It's kind of cool to see. So it is actual experience, and
And is it paid part-time?
it is paid. I mean, I consider what I make an hour to be decent, quite decent pay. Plus, it's supported. I mean, it's a very,
Right.
like I said, I'm still an apprentice. I'm still getting good feedback, and I can or ask questions, make mistakes, learn from them. The instructor, her thing is fail forward. It's
Fail
okay to
forward.
make a mistake.
Mm.
We'll learn from it and continue to grow, continue
Yeah.
to develop.
That's what I used to
So-
tell my students too. I used to be a teacher way back in another lifetime as well. Yeah,
For
it's
anybody who's curious, it starts at $25 an hour. That's what we start our counselors
$25.
at.
that's better than I figured. My current SSI check comes in at $5.60 an hour. So
Yeah, so
Uh,
we'll do better than that.
yeah, I just have a large gap in my work history of like 14 years because I've been wallowing in misery for the whole self-pity thing. It just took me a long time to dig out of that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I lost my sight in 2004, right? But I just kind of emotionally and psychologically processed my accident in 2023. And I remember the day, and so it can take people time. So you're not alone. But I will say I love you all so, so much for being here and all your questions. It really means the world to me. Like this is what I'm here to do. And I'm insanely busy. I'm stressed out all the time. I stay up, I lose sleep, and I absolutely love every second of it. Because there's nothing like that feeling. The first day I had a paycheck in my hand and I was like, I'm going to make it. And giving that feeling to one blind person at a time, that means the world to me. So I love you guys all so much. Have a great weekend. We're gonna have another webinar next week on the hiring process and getting hired. So stay tuned for that in your news feed. And we will talk soon. Take care.